What happens when a CEO walks into his own garage and can't even trust what his employees are telling his own customers? Nathaniel Sutter gripped the steering wheel of the beat-up Ford Fusion tighter as he pulled into the service lot. The car wasn't his, of course it was a rental, made to blend in. His usual ride, a black electric SUV, was parked 2 towns over. He was dressed in a faded hoodie, cargo pants, and a baseball cap pulled low. His beard had grown out over the past 2 weeks, and the glasses he wore weren't prescription. No one at this location had ever met him, and he intended to keep it that way for now. 14 shops. That's how many car service centers he owned, bought 5 years ago, when the previous owner retired. He'd turned the chain around, cleaned up the books, raised wages, and added benefits. But lately, something had been off at this location, Store 11 on Maple Drive. Customer reviews were inconsistent, complaints were vague. He didn't like that. He hated relying on second-hand reports, especially when the district manager, Tim, kept brushing him off with, "We're just short-staffed, nothing major." Nathaniel didn't buy it. So he made a call last week, said he was a customer named Nick. Booked an oil change and brake inspection. No one at Store 11 had ever met the real CEO in person. Most only knew a name on a paycheck. And now he was here pretending to be just another guy with car trouble. He stepped inside the lobby. The waiting area smelled like burnt coffee and cheap air freshener. Faded posters lined the walls, brake pads, tire deals, coolant flushes. The woman at the desk looked up. "Name?" she asked. "Nick Sanders." He kept his voice low, casual. She typed something. "Oil change and brake check." "Got it. You'll be with Alan." She nodded toward the bays. Nathaniel glanced through the window. Alan was wiping his hands with a red rag, tall, maybe early 40s, with a voice that carried loudly even from across the room. "Hey, Nick," Alan called. "Come with me, man." Nathaniel followed him into the garage. The place was loud, tools clanging, compressors hissing, music playing from a scratched-up speaker in the corner. There were 3 guys working, all looking busy, at least on the surface. Alan led him to Bay 4. "We'll take a look at the brakes first. You hearing grinding or just squeaking?" "Just a little squeak when I hit the brakes," Nathaniel replied. Alan nodded. "All right, we'll check it out. Take a seat, I'll call you in a few." Nathaniel sat, watching quietly. He didn't say much for the next 20 minutes. Just listened. Then he heard it. "I mean, you could get out of here with just the oil change," Alan was saying loudly to a woman in a pink hoodie. "But your rotors? Totally shot. Pads too. You drive like this, you're asking for an accident." She looked confused. "I just had them changed 6 months ago." Alan shrugged. "Whoever did it must have used the cheapest stuff on the market. You need all 4 replaced. I can cut you a deal, $900 out the door." The woman hesitated. I can't afford that today." Alan's voice dropped just enough to sound friendly. "Look, I'll help you out. Put it on a payment plan. But you really shouldn't drive it out of here like that." Nathaniel's chest tightened. The woman sat down, clearly shaken. Nathaniel looked at her car. He'd caught a glimpse earlier. It was a newer model sedan. No visible issues. Something didn't sit right. 10 minutes later, Alan called him over. "All right, Nick. So here's the deal. Your brakes are toast. Front and back. Pads, rotors, the works." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" "Oh yeah. I'd be surprised you haven't skidded through a red light yet. We're talking a full job. We're running a special $850 total. And I'll throw in the oil change." Nathaniel looked at him. "Really? I had them done maybe 4 months ago." Alan shrugged. "Then you got ripped off, man." Nathaniel stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Let me think about it." He walked back into the waiting area. The woman was still there, staring at her phone, clearly trying to figure out what to do. Nathaniel sat beside her. "He tell you your brakes are shot too?" She looked at him, surprised. "Yeah. Said the rotors are falling apart. They ever squeak? She blinked.
No.
Not really. Nathaniel leaned back, jaw tight. 2 customers. Same story. Same mechanic. And both of them just so happened to be people who probably wouldn't question a technical explanation. He waited until she left without the repairs, thankfully, then stepped outside, pulling out his phone. He dialed quietly. Hey, this is Nathaniel. Call the district manager. Tell him I need him at store 11 tomorrow at 10. And don't tell anyone else. He hung up and turned back toward the building. His jaw clenched. He'd seen enough for one day. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, he'd be back. And he wasn't coming alone. Nathaniel stood outside the service center the next morning, dressed in jeans and a navy button-down, clean-shaven now, hair combed. Still low profile, but no longer in disguise. He didn't need to pretend today. A black sedan pulled into the lot. Tim stepped out, tugging at the sleeves of his blazer like he was headed to a networking brunch instead of a problem site. He looked around, confused. Nathaniel waved him over. Tim. The district manager blinked. Nathaniel.
You're
Here. I asked for 10 sharp, Nathaniel said, checking his watch. You're 7 minutes late. Tim offered a quick apology, brushing it off with a half laugh. Traffic on the bypass. What's going on? We're going in. You're observing. Not talking. Not interfering. Tim hesitated. Should I know what I'm walking into? Nathaniel gave him a look that ended the conversation. Inside, the floor buzzed with activity. 2 of the bays were full. A third was empty. The front desk was manned by the same woman from the day before. She didn't look up. Nathaniel walked straight past her, through the side door into the garage. Alan was leaning against a toolbox, sipping from a styrofoam cup, talking to a younger tech with shaggy hair and a grease-streaked hoodie. Morning, Nathaniel said. Alan gave a distracted nod, not recognizing him. You need something? You could say that. Nathaniel stepped forward, eyes scanning the space. The younger guy stood a little straighter, uncertain. Another tech across the shop stopped what he was doing. Nathaniel turned to Alan. You inspected a white Fusion yesterday. Said the brakes were shot. Alan gave a slow nod. Yeah. I remember that one. And before that, a woman in a pink hoodie. Told her the same thing. Alan's brow creased. What's this about? Nathaniel stepped closer. I'm the owner. Nathaniel Sutter. That Fusion was mine. Alan blinked, then let out a small laugh like he didn't believe it. No one else said a word. I had those brakes replaced 2 months ago. High-grade ceramic pads, OEM rotors. Less than 2,000 miles on them. Alan opened his mouth, closed it, then said, could have been a manufacturer defect.
No.
I had them inspected this morning by a third-party shop. Nothing wrong. Not even wear. You lied. Alan's tone shifted. Look, I might have been cautious. Better safe than sorry, right? Nathaniel didn't respond. He turned to Tim. How many complaints have we had from this store in the last 90 days? Tim fumbled for his phone. I'd have to pull the exact number. Enough that I came here myself. Nathaniel turned back to Alan. You pressure sold a woman into a $900 brake job she didn't need. Told her she was risking her life. You targeted her because she didn't know any better. Alan's expression hardened. That's not fair.
You don't know me.
I know what I heard. And I know what I saw. You're done. Hand over your badge. Clean out your station. Alan's mouth opened again, but this time he didn't argue. He pulled his name patch off the front of his shirt, dropped it on the workbench, and walked out without another word. Nathaniel turned to the rest of the garage. Anyone else here feel like selling fear is part of the job? No one moved. The younger tech looked down at his boots. The other 2 kept their distance. Name? Nathaniel asked the one nearest the tire rack. Derek. You knew what was happening? Derek nodded, hesitant. Yeah. Alan. He's been like that a while. I told the manager once, but nothing came of it. Who's the manager? That'd be Mike, Tim said, stepping in now, trying to regain control. Where is he? Upstairs, Derek said. He usually stays in the office till noon. Nathaniel turned to Tim again. Go get him. Tim hesitated.
Now.
Nathaniel didn't answer. Tim headed for the stairs. Nathaniel turned to the younger tech. You knew. 3 months, the kid said. Name's Leo. You ever tell a customer something they didn't need? Leo's eyes darted.
No.
I just do what I'm told. Inspections, tire swaps, fluid checks. I don't push anything. Nathaniel nodded once. Hantai? Minutes later, a man in his late 30s came down the stairs. Heavy-set, buzzed hair, wearing a polo with a faded company logo. The minute he saw Nathaniel, he froze. You're Mike? Nathaniel asked.
Yeah.
Can I help you? You've been the manager here how long? 5 years. Then explain how Alan's been upselling false repairs under your watch. Mike swallowed. I didn't know the repairs were false. You had complaints. Your own tech say they spoke up. Mike's eyes flicked to Derek, then to Leo. I thought it was just misunderstandings. Nathaniel's voice was flat. You thought women showing up crying at the desk over $1,000 quotes were misunderstandings? Silence. You let a toxic pattern run unchecked. You ignored internal pushback. You buried customer feedback. That makes you complicit. I can fix it, no. You had years to fix it. Mike looked like he might argue, but something in Nathaniel's expression stopped him. He didn't resist when instructed to clear out. As Mike left, Nathaniel turned back to the shop. From now on, there's a zero-tolerance policy here. If you lie to a customer, you're gone. If you see someone else doing it and say nothing, you're part of the problem. He looked at Derek. You try to speak up. That counts. You're staying. Derek nodded, quiet. Leo, how's the pay? It's okay. Not amazing. Training. Mostly shadowing. I haven't done a full break job on my own yet. Nathaniel looked at Tim. Why not? 3 months in, and he's still shadowing. Tim glanced at a clipboard. We've been short-staffed. Hard to run full hands-on when we're, then hire better. And train smarter. Leo, starting today, you'll be assigned to work under a senior tech from another store. You'll transfer to store 6 for 2 weeks. Full pay. Leo's eyes widened. Seriously? Nathaniel nodded. You're not the problem. You're just not set up to succeed here. Tim stepped in. We can't afford to lose another tech here. You already lost 2, Nathaniel said. Because you didn't pay attention. Nathaniel walked back into the front office. The woman at the desk looked up nervously. You work front every day? Tuesday through Saturday. You ever notice weird patterns in the quotes? She hesitated. Sometimes. Alan was aggressive. I didn't like how he talked to certain customers. Why didn't you say anything? She looked down. People here don't listen. You speak up, they say you're overreacting or trying to start drama. So you just stop speaking. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Not anymore. You're the first line of customer contact. You see something off, you report it. Directly to Tim. If he doesn't respond, you email me. No chain of command if it's about ethics. She looked at him, surprised. Okay. What's your name? Marla. You're doing more than you're paid for, Marla. That's changing. We'll review your role and adjust your pay scale accordingly. She almost said thank you but stopped herself, unsure. Nathaniel turned back to Tim. We're pulling all quotes done by Alan for the last 6 months. Refunds where applicable. Full audit, starting today.
Tim nodded, subdued now.
And while you're at it, Nathaniel added, make sure every manager across all locations signs off on a new ethics policy. If they don't, they're out. He stepped back outside, the sun higher now, warm against the asphalt. The lot was quieter than before, but the tension had shifted. Not gone but honest for the first time in a long while. Nathaniel didn't smile. He didn't feel proud. He felt responsible, and he should have come sooner. Nathaniel returned to store 11 2 days later, this time with a clipboard, a pair of steel-toe boots, and no warning. The garage was quieter than before Alan and Mike were gone, and their absence left a noticeable gap in the workflow. Half the bays were idle, and the remaining techs were moving slower than usual, juggling more jobs than they could reasonably handle. He didn't announce himself. He wanted to see what would happen when the dust settled. Derek was under a Jeep in Bay 2, pulling a caliper off with deliberate care. Leo stood nearby, sorting tools onto a cart. Marla was at the desk, talking to a tall customer with a toddler in his arms. The air felt different, less tense but not settled. Not yet. Nathaniel walked past the service counter and into the garage. Derek noticed him first. "You back for another surprise inspection?" he asked, brushing his hands on his pants. "Not exactly," Nathaniel said. "I'm here to fill a shift." Derek blinked. "You're working the floor?"
Today, yeah.
"Techs are short, and I've done my fair share of break jobs." He looked around. "Where's the fill-in from store 6? Called out. "His kid's sick, supposedly. We've been rotating bays since this morning." Nathaniel gave a single nod. "All right. Hand me gloves. I'll take bay 4. He spent the next 4 hours under cars tightening belts, checking suspensions, replacing air filters. Leo shadowed him for 2 of those hours, asking questions, absorbing techniques. Not once did Nathaniel stop to talk about management. He just worked. And slowly, the pace steadied. At noon, he stepped into the break room. It was cramped and dimly lit, with a microwave that had seen better years and a fridge that hummed too loudly. Marla came in just as he was biting into a protein bar. "You really were under that Honda?"
She asked.
"All morning."
Didn't think CEOs did that.
"Most don't. But I won't fix this place from a spreadsheet." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You're making people nervous." He looked up. "Why?" "Because they're not used to being watched by someone who can change things." He finished chewing. "Shouldn't be nervous if they're doing the right thing." She didn't respond immediately, then said, "I saw the quote Tim drafted for the audit refund list. It's worse than you thought. Over 30 questionable break jobs since January. All on women. Sometimes the same woman, twice." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "We'll pay back every dollar." "Some of them won't come back." "Doesn't matter that you're cleaning house, they don't trust us anymore." "I know." He paused. "We'll earn it back the hard way." Marla's gaze lingered. "You're not like the last guy." "I hope not." She left without another word. By mid-afternoon, the garage was humming again. Nathaniel stood beside Leo at Bay 1, watching him torque the lug nuts with careful precision. "You've got good rhythm," he said. Leo grinned. "Used to help my uncle fix bikes."
Guess some of it stuck.
"You ever think about becoming ASE certified?" Leo's grip on the wrench paused. "Didn't think I'd last long enough in a shop to make it worth it." "You've lasted. And you're good." "I'd need help studying. I didn't do great in school." "I'll get you a mentor. And we'll pay for the test. You ready to step up?" Leo's face lit up. "Yeah, I am." Nathaniel clapped him gently on the shoulder and moved on. Outside, a silver minivan pulled into the lot. An older woman stepped out, clutching a worn leather folder. She walked in slowly, head low. Nathaniel followed her to the counter, where Marla was already assisting. "I think something's wrong with my alignment," the woman said softly. "The steering wheel shakes on the highway." Marla glanced toward the garage. "We can run a full diagnostic. Might be a balance issue or a control arm bushing." Nathaniel stepped forward. "I'll take a look myself." The woman blinked. "Are you the manager?" He smiled politely. "I'm a technician today." She looked uncertain, but handed over the keys. Nathaniel pulled the minivan into Bay 3 and ran a full inspection. It didn't take long to find the issue. 2 front tires were worn unevenly, one nearly bald on the inner edge. The alignment was slightly off, but the bigger issue was safety. He walked back to the lobby, calling Marlo over. She needs 2 front tires. Rear ones are fine. Alignment is light, could be corrected, but not urgent. Marla nodded. You want to bring her back? Nathaniel looked at the woman and said, I just looked over your van personally. You don't need anything expensive. 2 new front tires, and you'll be good to go. We'll rotate the rears and do a basic alignment check, no charge. Her eyes welled up slightly. Thank you. I've been to 3 shops in the last month. They all said I needed a full suspension rebuild. You don't. You just need people you can trust. She nodded, voice caught in her throat. As she sat down, Nathaniel turned to find Tim standing quietly near the entrance. His expression was unreadable. You said you wanted a follow-up, Tim said. I did. Let's walk. They stepped outside, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lot. You've been with the company a long time, Nathaniel said. 7 years. Then you know this didn't start with Alan. He was a symptom, not the cause. Tim nodded. I let things slide. I focused on volume, sales targets, pushing service packages. I didn't look too close at how we got there. That's changing now. I want weekly reports from every store, not just sales customer feedback, quote reviews. I want every manager retrained on ethics and accountability. Some won't like it. Then they can leave. Tim hesitated. What about bonuses? You always tied them to performance metrics. New structure. Customer satisfaction has to be over 90% to qualify. And no more commission on parts recommendations. That ends today. Tim gave a slow nod. I'll get it done. Nathaniel watched a delivery truck pull into the loading zone. He didn't speak again until the driver disappeared into the back. You want to stay in this company, Tim? Yes. Then lead like it matters. They walked back inside. The mood was different now, more focused, more grounded. The front desk was bustling with real questions. The floor was busy, but not frantic. And the repairs were finally honest. Nathaniel didn't need to say anything else. He'd seen enough to know who would rise and who would fall. And by the end of the week, those lines would be clear. By the following Monday, Store 11 was operating under a new rhythm. The audit had launched across all locations, and the corporate office was fielding calls from customers, some confused, some angry, and some deeply grateful. Refunds were being processed, and Nathaniel made sure that every one of them included a direct phone number to his office. No generic contact forms. No passing the buck. Inside the shop, things were far from perfect, but they were moving in the right direction. Nathaniel had brought in a lead technician from Store 2, a quiet, no-nonsense guy named Ramon who'd been with the company for over a decade. Ramon wasn't there to replace anyone, he was there to train and stabilize. And people listened to him, not because he raised his voice, but because he didn't waste words. Leo was still rotating tires and running diagnostics, but now he was doing it with more confidence. Ramon had given him a checklist, and Leo had started keeping a notebook in his back pocket where he jotted down torque specs, part numbers, and little tips he picked up on the floor. Nathaniel noticed, but didn't say anything yet. He'd rather see if Leo kept it up without being praised for it. In the front office, Marla had a new assistant, a transfer named Tanya from Store 9. Tanya was older, sharp-eyed, and knew how to calm irate customers without sounding rehearsed. The 2 women worked well together. Marla handled intake, Tanya managed follow-ups and scheduling. Neither of them had to deal with Alan's games anymore, and they both knew it. Mid-morning, Nathaniel was in the break room reviewing the first round of customer feedback reports when Tanya poked her head in. There's a guy at the counter asking for a refund. Says he paid for shocks he didn't need. Has the invoice and everything. Should I send him to you? Not yet, Nathaniel said. Let me see the paperwork. She handed it over. The invoice was from late March. For shocks replaced, plus labor. $960. The vehicle? A compact hatchback. Less than 5 years old. He walked to the front and found the man leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Tall, late 30s, wearing a windbreaker with a faded delivery company logo. Morning, Nathaniel said.
I'm Nathaniel.
I hear you've got a concern. The man raised an eyebrow. You're the manager? Something like that. I brought this car in 3 months ago. They said the rear shocks were leaking. Then once they got it on the lift, suddenly all 4 were unsafe. I was in a rush, so I said fine. But something didn't feel right. Took it to my cousin last week. He runs a shop upstate. Said the shocks looked brand new. Still had the original paint codes. You still have the old parts? I asked for them. They gave me a box. But when my cousin opened it, half of them weren't even for my make. Nathaniel nodded once. I'll make this simple. You're getting a full refund.
No runaron, no delay.
But I'd like to keep the box of parts, if that's all right. The man glanced at him, surprised. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry this happened. It won't again. After the man left, Nathaniel took the box to the back office and laid the parts out on a workbench. Ramon walked in a few minutes later, wiping his hands on a rag. Those from the refund guy? Ramon asked.
Yeah.
Look at this. Nathaniel picked up a rear shock. This one's from a 10-year-old SUV. The guy drives a hatchback. Ramon turned it over in his hands. Someone went through the trouble of staging fake part returns? Looks that way. Alan must have had this routine down. Sell the job, swap out garbage parts, hand over a box to look legitimate. Ramon shook his head slowly. You think he was doing this alone?
No.
I think Mike knew. I think he turned a blind eye and told everyone else not to ask questions. Ramon didn't say anything for a moment. Then, you think any of the guys still here were in on it? I don't think so. But if I find out otherwise, they're gone.
No warnings.
That afternoon, Nathaniel walked the floor again, clipboard in hand. He wasn't checking performance metrics, he was watching behavior. Eye contact with customers. How techs explained repairs. Whether they asked for approvals before moving forward. At Bay 3, he found Derek explaining a control arm replacement to a woman in her 50s. She looked uncertain. Derek pulled out a printed diagram, pointed to the part on her actual vehicle, and explained why it mattered. She nodded slowly and signed the estimate. After she left, Nathaniel approached. Nice work, he said. Derek raised an eyebrow. You checking up on me? I'm making sure we don't slip back. Derek leaned against the tool cart. You think it's just about policies and ethics forms? This kind of pressure, it starts from the top. Targets, incentives, quotas. You stop rewarding shortcuts, people stop taking them. Nathaniel nodded. That's exactly what I'm doing. But it takes time. Derek looked around. You're lucky it didn't take lawsuits. That's still a possibility. But if it comes, we'll own it. Just after 5, the last customer pulled out of the lot. The shop closed down, lights dimmed, compressors powered off. Nathaniel gathered the crew in the garage. Derek, Leo, Ramon, Marla, Tanya, and the 2 newer techs who'd stayed quiet through the transition. This has been a hard week, Nathaniel said. You've worked understaffed, under pressure, and under scrutiny. But you didn't cut corners. And more importantly, you didn't make excuses. Everyone stood in a loose half-circle. No one interrupted. I came here because I stopped trusting the reports I was getting. And what I found was worse than I expected. But I also found people who care, who didn't walk away when things got ugly. He turned to Leo. You've got your ASE test scheduled for next month. Ramon's going to help you prep. Leo looked stunned. Seriously? You've earned it. He turned to Marla and Tanya. We're upgrading the appointment system. You'll be part of the design process. I want the front desk to have a direct voice in how we handle scheduling and customer flow. Marla nodded once. Tanya gave a small smile. Nathaniel looked at the team. The store's going to be audited quarterly going forward. Random checks. No notice. Not because I don't trust you, but because we're not going to let this place slide back into silence.
He paused.
You don't get to be proud of doing the right thing once. You earn that by doing it every day. Everyone stood quietly, taking it in. Nathaniel let the silence stretch, then added, "Go home.
Rest."
We've got work tomorrow." As they scattered, Leo lingered behind. "I didn't think people like you actually showed up," he said. Nathaniel looked at him. "Then it's on me to prove it wasn't just for show." Leo nodded and walked out into the dusk. Nathaniel stayed behind for a few minutes, shutting off lights, locking the back door, and walking the length of the service phase one final time.
No scouting.
No pressure sales. Just tools on racks, cars on lifts, and a team that finally had a reason to believe again. He stepped into his car, the same rental he'd arrived in a week ago, and sat for a long moment before turning the key. He hadn't fixed everything, but he'd stopped the bleeding, and he wouldn't let it start again.